So, hi, Teresa. Another round of conversations today. We've picked some interesting topics. I think hopefully it's something that people have a bit of a question mark about. When we're kind of looking at the idea of hypnotic experiences, obviously people ring up and they want to go and be hypnotized by a hypnotherapist, but they may have a few ideas about what that perhaps looks like because of the stage hypnosis or things that they might have seen in movies. So I thought today it would be a good idea to sort of talk about what a hypnotic induction even is, what being hypnotized is, and something to do with deepeners, because quite often people might say at the end of the session, oh, I didn't think it was deep enough. I didn't go deep enough. So we'll talk a little bit about that and your take and my take on what this all means. So hopefully at the end of this little chat, people out there will be a little bit clearer about what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and what hypnotherapy really brings, in the way of each hypnotherapist works differently as well. And what I might do as a hypnotic induction might be different to someone else, and why that is, and whether that's better or worse or the same, or so it's good to sort of think about these things, eh?
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah, as you would probably say as well, that every session is done differently, with different clients, and also what their expectation would be of an induction and a hypnosis session as well.
Mm. So for me, when I was training to become a hypnotherapist, the quickest way or easiest way I could describe what being hypnotized was like was normalizing it for a start, that it happens naturally all throughout the day. So when you're driving, we often go from A to B and we don't even remember half the trip, but we got there safely. Our subconscious was driving the car. Our conscious mind was doing something else. So we go into hypnotic sort of time lapses where we're in flow. We lose track of time, and before we know it, we're at our destination. We don't remember half the trip. So that's hypno driving, right?
Yes.
So our subconscious does a really nice job of protecting us when we're in that space, and we indicate right and we do all of those normal things. So we can definitely be doing things actively. We don't have to have our eyes closed. And I think that is probably what people sort of imagine, that all hypnosis, you have to have your eyes closed. But that's not true on stage either. If you go to a stage performance and they're hypnotizing people, they don't have their eyes closed the whole time, do they?
No, and it's like when you read a book, you go into that sort of hypnosis state if you're really engrossed in the book or watching a movie as well. And of course, if you're watching the movie or reading a book, you haven't got your eyes closed either.
Mm. So it's a narrow focused attention often, and we lose track of time and we suspend disbelief. So if we're watching a movie and it's a horror movie, often our heart will start racing, we'll get frightened, and as if it was real. But we know on another level it's just fantasy and we're just watching a movie. But our brain, it receives that message as if it's real, and our body starts to react to it as if it's real. So why is that useful to understand? Because, I think a lot of times people think, oh, I can't be hypnotized. And that's where they've got the wrong understanding of what hypnosis is and how natural and normal it actually is. So every time someone daydreams about something, let's say you're thinking about going to the supermarket, a small little thing, and you go, oh yeah, I need milk and bread, and you're going through the shopping list, or you see the fridge and it's empty of something and you tag it in your mind. You go, oh yeah, I need to get more strawberries or whatever that is. And then by the time you get to the supermarket, you've got that tagged in your mind, you retrieve the memory of intention, and you go and buy the things that were missing. So our brain works like that all the time. We're doing dress rehearsals before time. We're doing direct suggestion, like, yes, I'm going to get milk. So next time I go to the supermarket, I'll get milk. It's very direct. We don't tend to say, oh, maybe I'll get milk. That might be what we call an indirect suggestion that may or may not happen, right?
Of course, yes.
But when we're sort of looking at that hypnosis, a lot of times people are quite authoritarian in their style. Um, so that's, I guess, coming back to the Svengali model. You are looking into my eyes, you are getting sleepier, and every time you hear my voice, you know, that kind of authoritarian style of induction or hypnotic scripting. Some people do work like that, some hypnotherapists. They like instant inductions and so on. And then other hypnotherapists might like more of a relaxed, sort of progressive relaxation style. But what is important is that the person who is coming in for the therapy is actually open to it, because it doesn't matter how many years experience you might have had as a hypnotherapist. If a person is not relaxed in your space, they're going to block you. They're just going to block the experience and override it. So you must have rapport, or at least a confusional state. So confusion means something like Ericksonian. He used confusional methods, where he might do a handshake induction, and he would go to handshake the person, and then he'd go and tie a shoe, or he would hold the handshake for a long period of time, keep on shaking the hand, and then he would say stuff, and that would be very direct suggestion, embedded, bypassing the critical mind. So it's really interesting how inductions have evolved over the years, and who uses what and why. Yeah, what's your thinking on that?
I think it really depends on the purpose of your session and what your clients' actually expectations are. Because, like you were saying, if you don't gain rapport, you're never going to get anything. So if they come in and they think they're going to have this beautiful long relaxation induction through hypnotherapy, and you go and do a rapid induction or confusion, then your client's not going to be comfortable at all. But I do like using rapid inductions, because if, say, you've got a athlete that's coming to you for a session and you need to bring them in and out of hypnosis several times for that session, you can't do this nice progressive relaxation induction several times throughout the session, because that's going to eat up on your time. And it's what people feel comfortable. If you've got an anxious person, an eye fixation with them keeping their eyes open for a wee while might actually help them relax more into that session.
I think too, the art of setting up the client for success and letting them know what's going to happen next, and then following through is a technique that many hypnotherapists do use. An example with the eye fixation would be, in a moment, I'm going to get you to focus on a point above your normal eye level. And when you do that, when it's time, I'm going to then start to count backwards from 10 down to 1. With each number you hear, I'd like you to blink. And each time you blink, just feeling and allowing that level of relaxation in your eyes to increase. And then, of course, what happens when you set them up and then you go, okay, let's begin. Now focusing way up high, almost as if you're trying to look up at your eyebrows. That's right. So you're acknowledging they've done the cue, so you're going, yes, that's right. It's a very Ericksonian sort of language pattern. But people like to know that they got it right. So then they move into what we call compliance. So they're following your instructions to the letter. And of course, you are also using embedded suggestion that every time they blink, their eyes get heavier and sleepier. So, of course, every time they blink, their eyes get heavier and sleepier, because it meets expectation and they've become open to the suggestion, and they follow the instruction, and voila, they get the sensation of their eyes getting heavier and sleepier, and then they're convinced that they've been hypnotized. And quite often, if they don't have that convincer that something different's happened, they often will come out of that session going, oh, I wasn't really hypnotized. I could hear the the person the whole time. I can remember all of it, as if somehow they weren't meant to be listening and they weren't meant to be remembering the session. It's quite fascinating what people have in their mind about what it is and what it isn't. What are your thoughts on that?
I was actually going to ask you that, Meredith, yourself, is how often do you use convincers in your sessions for people in a pre-talk, perhaps, that don't know, haven't had hypnotherapy before and don't really know what to expect throughout a session? Would it be
Every
something you'd
time.
go every
Yep,
time?
every time.
Yep.
I think it's important because then the person, you normalize it. So the pre-talk is huge. You've got to normalize what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and what they may or may not experience. And it's okay that people experience it differently. So some people remember everything. Some people don't remember hardly anything, and that's okay too. It's not right or wrong. The other thing is too, that you're not forcing someone to do something that they don't want to do. They might have come in because they're struggling getting on that plane, or they're struggling to quit smoking, or they're struggling with something,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a part of them that wants that change, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I was sort of talking about convincers, like my go-to. If anybody has listened to last week's session with us, it seems as I've got a bit of a pattern with lemons. One of the things that lemons of all things, I have no idea where that came from. I like to think it comes from my love of the Mediterranean and they grow abundantly, but who knows? One of the convincers is where you have a piece of lemon and you get somebody to look at that slice of lemon in their hand and imagine what it smells like and its texture and the juice, and you go on from there. Is that a typical convincer that you would actually use, or is there a
No, that's not one that I'd use, but I would definitely be using an eye lock induction. So I get a person to feel the sensation of not being able to open their eyes after we've done a countdown. Or I might get the person to feel the heaviness of their hands, so heavy that even if they try to lift them, they can't anymore. They're just stuck. That, I think, having that experience, that one, they can follow instruction, they can be compliant, and then we can play from there. Anything is possible, right? So this is really important, I think, for the client to have some level of experience where they understand, oh, actually, it's quite hard to open my eyes now, or, oh, hang on, I guess I could lift my arms, but when I do, it's funny, they kind of feel heavier than normal, or they feel like they're stuck there. And that can be, for me, I think, a stepping stone into a really solid session where people will uptake often very big changes in their life. For example, I might get them to do a hand elevation. So, okay, in a moment, I'm going to get you to put your hand up as if you're asking a question in a room. And I'm going to very, very slowly count down. And every time you hear another number, I would like you to just move your arm just down slightly, as if it was like on a clock, and you were one of the arms of the clock, just really slowly moving. But every time you do that, you'll notice you get that arm feels heavier and heavier, so heavy that by the time I count to 1, you're just going to let it flop and drop. And when you do, it's going to be so relaxing, absolutely incredible. And you're just going to slip into this wonderful open state of relaxation where you're open to new ideas and thoughts. So when we're setting someone up for that success, again, we're using this following instruction, compliance. This is a big part of a good hypnotic journey for a client and for the hypnotherapist to conduct. Now, a lot of people don't do progressive relaxation. So what are the alternatives? Well, the hand drop induction. There can be many other things that you can do without having to do full progressive relaxation.
I was going to say, with your demonstration there, it goes to show how convincers are a great way of accessing and getting past that gateway. You know, we need to be able to get past the conscious mind and access the subconscious mind.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, there are phenomena that happens when you've got someone hypnotized. Like you could literally do a whole session and the person could keep their arms straight like that and not tire. They can literally just be frozen in that space. But think about how many times you've been in bed or sitting and you're watching and you've got this device and an hour and a half later you haven't moved your hand. But try doing that without the device there and see how you feel. So quite often what happens is we can have these superpowers of holding ourselves in time and losing total time. Like I love asking some clients. I had one this morning, actually. It was 38 minutes long, the hypnotic journey, when we were using parts. And it was quite cool because like you ask them at the end, so how long do you think that was? And they go, oh, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Try 30, 38 minutes. And I go, oh, crikey. Doesn't feel like that. So time is a little bit interesting when you're working with people. And that hypnotic induction, it's really just taking someone into a natural state, but you're being a guide. So you're helping them to go into a really wonderful state where their mind can just park the inner critic for a while and they can tune into that subconscious part that runs all the programs. What about you? What is a induction that you particularly like?
I do like the progressive relaxation induction. Again, that is time means though. I do think using your rapid inductions, especially if you're wanting to bring people in and out, quite often is a good way to go. And also a lot of people often expect you to click your fingers when they come to do hypnotherapy. So when you're doing your rapid induction, you can put that in, clicking your fingers. Confusion is a great one to use, I find, for very analytical people. Using that method of, like you say, Milton Erickson, going to shake the hand and then tying up the shoelaces, because sometimes not just people that are analytical, but sometimes when people come to you on a regular basis, they then start to assume what you're actually going to do. So if you use the same induction again and again with them, they might just be not fully engaged. They might be taking over a little bit of that control. So I think it's nice to drop in something a little bit different if they become too familiar with the process.
I like to play around with my induction enough that it's not exactly the same every time because it keeps it interesting for me. But it is fascinating. There are certain types of clients over the years that if I vary away from what they initially had, they go, oh, that was different. Can you do that? One that you did with me the first time. It's really interesting because they're sitting there expecting it to be the same. And of course, then they get the disappointment that it wasn't the same. And it's, oh, yeah. So that can happen too, where people go to their best liked one. Like they like the countdown and they like the progressive relaxation because it takes them a little bit more to settle potentially. So they might be the kind that are really racy in the mind, that they're kind of 1,000 times quicker than they should be, maybe. And they do take time to land. And they know that. And so sometimes when you're slowing them right down, it's like they're moving into alpha, theta, and light delta, that they're kind of moving into that zone of sleepiness, which often is what that kind of person might need to be able to be open enough to play. Yeah.
Well, one of the ones I actually enjoy doing as well, which is it's a rapid induction, but it's a bit of a play on your progressive relaxation induction, because you can ask them then with each exhalation, they actually release anything no longer serving them or any negative beliefs. And with each inhalation, you're actually feeling more and more relaxed. And that, and continue to focus on your breath. And the more you focus on the breath, the more you're feeling relaxed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
hypnotic
getting that.
language. Yeah, sorry. Hypnotic language is something that we weave in to make it a simple movement, make it more powerful than it would normally be.
Yes, and like you say, using your tone of your voice and maybe even matching them, as your breathing gets deeper and deeper, slowing down your voice.
Mm.
You're feeling more and more sleepy, just changing that tone to help people drift into that sensation and to go more into a hypnotic state.
Definitely. I think too, if we look at just engaging the imagination, it's called a transderivational search, where you say, okay, I want you to go back to a time where you felt really confident. Now, someone might have their eyes open at this point. You're just talking to them. It's just conversation, and you just go, okay, well, just take yourself there, and when you're there, just close your eyes and just drop into it. Imagine as if you were there all over again. What was that like? Tell me about it. What else did you notice? And so you're inviting them to go and re-hallucinate or re-journey that old memory that had the confidence attached to it. And it can be done again and again. It's called fractionalization. So when you get a client to open and close their eyes a number of times through the session, with that conversation in between, they tend to go deeper and deeper each time. So let's say someone's got a phobia, and you say, okay, I want you to sort of imagine what it would be like if you never had this phobia. What would that be like? And often that's quite a hard thing for them to focus on, because to even contemplate that idea, they're still in their awake critical mind, and they go, oh, I didn't, I can't even imagine it. They're in that way. So when we do the hypnosis, this is where that gatekeeper, that inner critic that doesn't believe it could ever change, goes to sleep for a little bit, and the possibility zone comes in. You go, well, okay, just what if you to close your eyes and imagine the fear as a color, and then form a shape, make it into a shape. What shape would it be if it had a shape? And if you could touch it, how would it feel to touch? And if you could walk right around it. Now, they're already hallucinating something that doesn't exist. So already you've kind of gone into a hypnotic experience where they're hallucinating the possibility that it could even become a shape. Because can you hold the fear like you can hold a glass? Is it a thing? So quite often, if we can make it into a thing in the mind, we can then manipulate it, right? So then
Yeah.
you might be able to say, hey, now you've got that shape. How would you like to change the shape? Is there any way that you would kind of want to change it into something different? How would you like to serve you moving forward? Like, does that serve you anymore? Was that useful at some point? Okay, well, what if it's not useful anymore moving forward? What would you like to replace it with? So this is where we might get a language like courage or strength or something in that way, or I just want to feel peaceful when I come across a spider, or whatever it is, rather than panicky and stricken with total fear. So when we're looking at the idea of hypnosis and working in that, it is as simple as getting someone to activate their imagination in certain ways. Can be very, very powerful. So before they even know it, they're actually in hypnosis. They're working with you, but they may not have had the convincer. So let's say you were doing the conversational fractionalization and the person didn't get the convincer, then they might think that we missed the hypnosis, even though you've been working in that way the whole time. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting, and often a lot of hypnosis is done conversationally as well, and people have like this preconceived idea, I guess, that nothing could change, nothing can happen because they don't feel like they went into a trance. So therefore, because they're not into that hypnotic state, they haven't been done hypnosis
Yeah.
because it's just been a conversation.
So there are many different inductions and there are many different ways of deepening. You can use your pace tone in a deepening way. So you can even add, like you say, a broader suggestion to that. To say, as my words slow down, you find that your mind can play at new ideas that transform everything in the most perfect way, even better than what you imagined. So using those hypnotic ideas and language and pace and tone, the client goes with you on the storytelling journey, and then they start to make it make sense. Let's look at the pros and cons of taking someone to a happy place, and you dictate the happy place. You say, oh, I want you to go to a beach.
And it may not be someone's perfect place. They may hate the sand and the grit and the sound. So you're just going to come out of rapport, aren't you, when that sort of thing happens?
So even in the pre-talk, you can say, what is your happy place? If you wanted a bit of an inkling, and why is that a nice place for you? Okay, so you can kind of get to know them a little bit more, or you can do it very privately, and you can literally just say, look, I want you to just go to a happy place. And once you're there, just nod your head. Okay, and just notice what it's like, what it is that makes you happy in the space. And once you've got that in your mind, just nod your head again. Good. That's right. And it's amazing how your mind knows how to be happy. It knows exactly what it needs to be happy, doesn't it? And then they're shaking their head again. And this wonderful yes set is another hypnotic part of getting a person really into a process where they just go, yes, yes, yes. And then you can make the next suggestion that might have been normally challenging slip in. And they just go, yes. It's fascinating what we can do as hypnotherapists. But there are lots of different induction techniques, and no one is the perfect one or the right one for everyone. And I think just talking to a person, thinking about their age, their attention, I would not do a long induction for a child that is under 8, because they're not going to stay with you for very long. They're going to get bored. Unless it was a bedtime story and you're getting them to do a level of progressive relaxation, but you certainly don't want to do it for a long time. Kids are in constant hypnosis anyway. They
Yeah, I
live in
was just going to say, yeah, just going to say to you, often work done with children is done more conversationally hypnosis than actually needing to put them into the hypnotic state. Yeah, because they're already there.
drawing pictures in their mind, drawing pictures physically, playing with objects in the room to create a story of possibilities.
And their imagination is just amazing, isn't it? Where they'll take that.
Yeah. And we can introduce concepts because sometimes their ability to understand how the world actually is a little bit narrow. So quite often it's a wonderful opportunity to engage new concepts for them that maybe they haven't come across before. Like, did you know that you could be an expert relaxer? Like a superpower? Did you know you could do that? So when we invite a young mind to think about that as a possibility, it becomes a thing that they could actually achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they haven't really even had that thought that they could be an expert relaxer and that could be their superpower, then they may just be believing that anxiety is it. You know, that's all you feel is anxious all the time. That's the normal. So finding ways to talk to different people at their level of understanding, and being a little bit imaginative with the session is important as a hypnotherapist. I think we need to be a little bit creative when we're working with people, because one size does not fit all.
No. And we've talked about inductions and convincers, Meredith. What about deepeners?
Hmm.
Do you use deepeners in every session? And what's your reasoning for?
Yes and no. um, Depending on the style of hypnosis that I'm doing. So when I really want to get someone to go and retrieve a memory, they may need to have a deepener process to be able to be relaxed enough to go and hunt for that in a really resourceful way. Otherwise, if a person's not relaxed enough and they're really, really scared about what happened to them in the past, the inner guardian will come up and protect them. It won't let them go there. And I think you need to be able to pace the client into a very nice, relaxed, open, optimistic state, and even use potentially a positive, powerful anchor that they can come back to or utilize during that journey. Um, People are probably wondering all these words, anchors and stuff. I know it's a lot of terms that in our profession we use. And I realize now, just thinking about it, a lot of people don't even know what an anchor is, let alone some of these other terms that we've been using. So if you are, on that note, if you are interested in knowing more about this language and hypnosis and how to hypnotize someone in a really professional and positive therapeutic way, then going and getting training is essential. And it takes a little bit of time, but it's well worth it at the end of the day, because you're just going to get more and more confident as you practice. But it's also normalizing, hopefully today it's normalizing how we just go into natural trance or hypnosis all throughout the day anyway. But it's utilizing it in a therapeutic way. So how many times someone's woken up from a nightmare and it's been terrifying, and they stay with that energy of the nightmare for quite some time until their mind goes, no, it was just a dream. Thank goodness it wasn't real. But quite often, if we're daydreaming our nightmares, we can start to build the anxiety levels and fear as if it was real. Now, someone would say, well, they weren't deeply in trance. Well, maybe they were. Maybe they were so lost in that thought that nothing else existed other than that thought. So how deep someone goes is very subjective, actually, and it's quite tricky to measure just by observing someone. But there are things that will tell you someone is in a more hypnotized sort of state than normal. So that could be a change in their pupils, it could be a change in their, what do you call it? I've forgotten what it's called.
Oh, your vagus nerve coming down, your breathing?
The pulse.
Yeah.
Things change, and the color of the person and how they're breathing and how they're moving. All of these things we're looking at, and it's kind of reading what their normal is versus when they're in hypnosis. They will actually change, and even the way they talk to you in hypnosis, their wisdom levels change. So you can talk to a part of that person, and it's incredible the intelligence that comes from that part that is quite different from the normal person's conversation with you prior to the hypnosis. Yeah. Um, Going back to the deepeners, what's your take on it, Teresa?
With the deepeners again, it sometimes is nice as a bit of a convincer for yourself and also for your client that they are actually in a hypnotic state. They've gone back down a little bit deeper, and you can bring that into your already induction. And it may be that you bring them in that they notice a set of stairs, and you're going to step down those stairs, and with each step you take, you're going to go deeper and deeper into relaxation. You want them to feel and hear how that step actually feels. And as you go down those steps, you're going to go deeper and deeper into relaxation.
Mm.
Which is a nice journey sometimes for people to actually slowly come down and go into relaxation, and then just gradually go down a flight of staircases of their own and feel how that is,
Mm.
and listen to how that is, and notice how they're feeling as they actually go down into relaxation, ready for you to actually be able to do your work when you're got to the bottom of the stairs
Yeah.
and make those changes.
Hallucinating the different senses is a big part of that, isn't it? So, they start to hear different things or feel different sensations, and they're kind of losing their physical body in this time and space. They're going somewhere else. And that is a big part of that process, isn't it?
Yes, most definitely. And getting them to engage with all those senses that are around them that they can hear and feel and taste and yeah, I'm doubling up now.
One deepener that I used to do quite a bit, I kind of haven't done it for a while. It's interesting how we go through these phases. Was getting someone to imagine a room without any gravity in it. And inside that room is a little tiny marble just hovering in space. And imagine in your mind you could move the marble with your mind. You could tell it to spin, and it's a good little marble, very, very good. Listens to all of your instructions, and it will spin perfectly. And you could tell it to stop, and you could tell it to go up, down, side to side, wherever you wanted to go, just like one of those mice things on a computer. You can control it in your mind. Now imagine now that this marble could grow bigger, perhaps as big as a little cat. Maybe it could be like a little fur ball in the middle of the room, and when you touch it, it might even purr. And once you've imagined that, doing that, just nod your head. That's right. So you're allowing the person to have this wonderful experience. And then you might get them to imagine that it's becoming as big as a beach ball. And imagine it could be a droplet of water as big as a beach ball in this room without any gravity. And it's just there. And you could touch it with your index finger just ever so slightly, and you could see it ripple out. And if you leave it alone, it comes into stillness again. And you can see right through it, right to the other side of the room. And it's kind of warm and loving to touch. But imagine too that when you are ready and when you want to, you can grow it into a big sphere of love and light. And it can fill up the room. And you could float inside of it as if it was a cocoon of love and light. And it's protecting you in all directions. So this is where I guide people then into travel into the past, the future, into the time between time, where there is no time, where it's just pure potentials and possibilities. These are really neat ways of getting someone to play with you and engage those senses. So that's just one that I sort of developed over the years that I quite enjoyed doing. Yeah. On that note, is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't covered before we sort of finish up for today?
No, I think really if people are interested in actually what we've actually been talking about and want to learn more, then to click the link below, go and have a look at your website, look at what courses you have to offer, and sign up. Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. It's been great. We're going to do more and more of these conversations. So please like, subscribe, follow us. It is an opportunity for you to grow your knowledge bank, and we're going to enjoy these series of talking about different topics each time. And maybe too, if people in the comments would like to ask questions, we can talk to that and we can answer questions that you may have. It's always nice to share knowledge out there into the world and get people stimulated and thinking about possibilities. So anyway, have fun, everyone. And thank you again, Teresa, for your time.
Thank you. See you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.